Hey, She-Slayers, and welcome to another episode of She Slays a Day. This is episode 99, and I have a very, very special return guest, Dr. Denisa Weber. Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me back.
People are used to like me kind of doing my own intro and then like going on some weird tangent for a while. And I'm like, no, anytime I have you on, I'm always like, no, because I want her to pray. And I love just like shooting the shit with you. I just like to keep the listeners on their toes. You don't know what you're going to get. You don't get a pre-intro.
You do a very good job of that.
Take that as a compliment.
It is a compliment. It is a compliment.
Yeah. I don't know what Enneagram it is where it's like, you can't box me. That's yeah. So welcome. So episode 99. Do you remember well, I know you remember being on the show, but like it was 13. I had to go back 13. And look. I knew it was like
fresh.
Yes.
Yeah. Way to go. Way to go, 99. Let's go. Let's go, She Slays.
Podcasting is exhausting. It just keeps going, Denisa. It's like never like a woohoo. All right, you did 100. You get to be done now. It's like, no, now it's 101. And you're like,
good. It's good. Way to go. Keep the content going.
Hobby. It's a great hobby. Yes. But yeah, in episode 13, we talked about faith. There was somebody who wrote in about like, they were like new in their Christian journey and they weren't sure how to like incorporate it into practice. And so like, if you haven't listened to episode 13, listen to this episode, but then go back and listen to episode 13. Cause Denisa, you are awesome. You're just always awesome. And you were also on the round table.
Oh yes. The round table. That was a year ago. Almost a year ago.
You might be, I'm just realizing this now, you might technically be the only guest that has made 3 appearances.
Oh, wow.
Wow. That's a gold star.
Well, thanks for having me 3 times.
Jeez Louise. Do I not have any other friends? No,
oh, my goodness. Oh, well, I'm excited to talk to all your She Slayers today.
Yeah, I really like what we're talking about today. It's definitely something that's come up. I mean, just honestly, we're talking about communication. And it just kind of like, it's that topic that never goes away. It's kind of always relevant.
Yes, always.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And it's just like through the pandemic, it's like, well, how are you communicating that? And how are you communicating with patients with this? And it's just like, it's never a topic that goes out of style. So I'm definitely excited to hear everything that you have to say about it today.
Awesome.
Before we dig in though, I wasn't telling the listeners. In my head, I was telling Kirby, that's what I was telling, that like, I was going to ask you to pray. And I was saying like, hopefully it doesn't put her on the spot, but like, you're my Southern, like Christian girl. We didn't get to go to IF gathering.
I know it. It's okay. We'll do it again.
Am I allowed to say that I'm disappointed in Texas that they didn't do
You're allowed to say that.
Am I allowed?
You're allowed to say that. I think many people are disappointed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But like for those that haven't heard of the IF gathering, Jenny Allen puts it on. How long has it been going on?
I don't know, maybe just under 10 years.
Okay. Mm-hmm. But it's this huge women Christians conference. And it's like, there's bands and there's vendors and it's just inspirational.
Mm-hmm.
Next year.
Yeah, next year. We have to go next year.
Get our tickets. So,
all right. Should we kick this thing off?
Oh, sure. Yep. Okay. So why don't you pray and we will get started.
All right. Dear Heavenly Father, Lord, thank you so much for the time that we get to come together and just encourage one another. Also, Lord, I just pray that you just anoint our conversation and may it bring a glory to you. But that we always anchor back to you and God, just always see your glory in everything that you are doing in our lives and continue to see your handprint and fingerprint along in all of our journeys. God, just give us guidance and wisdom as we help and nurture our practices, speak to our people, and God, just help us to be your hands and your feet. But just bless this conversation. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Okay. So I wouldn't say before we jump in, I would say so we're talking about communication. Would you say that, because when did you graduate chiropractic school?
In 2009.
Okay. So would you say that you felt like that was a gift of yours right from the get-go? Like, do you feel like, because communication is absolutely, it's a gift that some people have and other people need to learn. Would you say that it's something that you learned, or you kind of just automatically were a little different than our colleagues?
No, I think I stumbled. Like, I think I just, like, that's, I guess, my biggest, like, the whole purpose of this thing is kind of the gift back to yourself, like the gift back to what I wish I would have known, or the gift, like what could have made this journey easier for me? Like what could have, bridged the gap? What could have like connected all the things and helped me more streamline? And instead of it thinking that it's ethereal, or that it's all these different things, or that I'd feel flustered in conversation, or that I was super passionate, but it was hard to like convey what I knew to people and where they were at in in 2 minutes flat, or if I had 10 seconds, or if I had, it's like, and now it's so much simpler, but it took falling flat on your face, fumbling, word vomiting, chiro pulpit preaching, all the things. Like, how do you get to, and even now, like, it's continuously a refinement. Like, even, and even in practice now, it's like you find better ways to communicate with your people the more you do it, And so I always loved watching just beautiful connectors, and the connectors in the story, like the connectors were the best communicators. The people who could really just connect to someone knew exactly what to say and when to say it. And it was because they were dialed in, So, I mean, we'll kind of get into these little nuances or what have you, but it's like, I did not come upon this. I love people. And I think that's how we come into chiropractic. Well, maybe not all people, but, we come into this and we're passionate about what we're going to do. And, we can be beautiful practitioners and we can just completely kill it with the adjustment and just do amazing. And we fixate, like, that's what I fixated a lot on, was technique. Mm-hmm. But then it's like, if I can't,
that's what we're told in school is matters the most. Right?
Like, if you can't communicate the value of what you bring to the table, you're not going to get them on the table, much less have them even walk through the threshold of your office. So it's like, you've got to be able to communicate that what you do so that you can even have them experience what's on the table, or what happens in their lives because of what happens on the table. So, and then of course, then the communication goes further with like, even conveying what's happening with them, and then keeping, like, obviously having them understand and value chiropractic as they go along in their journey, and how that influences you with how you grow your business as a practice.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, one of the best adjusters that I've ever been adjusted by is no longer in practice, because he wouldn't say that it's because he had a communication issue. He just struggled to practice. And I'm like, oh my gosh, if it was just about the hands, we would have a lot more successful. And I've been adjusted by some chiropractors that I'm like, wow, you're really successful, but they're good. They connect. Mm-hmm. Okay. So you created the Conversation Lab, your course, when did it first release? A year ago?
I released it in June.
Okay.
The first round.
So obviously there was a moment way before the release of the Conversation Lab that you had this like clarity of realizing, this is a struggle I've had to go through. I'm learning. I mean, I'll toot your own horn. I'm kind of good at this. And looking back at our profession and going, ooh, our profession needs this. Why do you where do you think the problem is with chiropractic? Is that we're not teaching it in school? Is it that we're putting too much emphasis on the wrong things? Like, where was that moment of like, oh, we need this?
I think it's different for every single person. I think sometimes for the over passionate, it's that they are too in their own head and less connecting to the person and what they need to hear. For the person who's like right out of school, they're just in board mode. They've been in chiro speak, in chiro language, and they don't know how to connect it to a normal public. Like my goal is my goal is for people to be able to communicate chiropractic like they do, like what happened at the game last weekend. Like they should be able to have a beer with a bud and just say what chiropractic is very simply and in their own language, not scripted. That's another thing. The reason why scripts sell is because people fail to do the work to find their own way of communicating. And that's like, again, I would say probably the number one thing about TCL and the Conversation Lab, which is the communication course that I do. It is about finding your own way of communicating, which I think is the only thing that's out there in our profession right now that is a communication course that's not giving you what to say.
Yep.
It doesn't give you scripts. It makes you do the work. Because I do give a lot of like PDFs and very helpful homework.
Oh, yeah. I just have to say, as I was like digging through your quick start guide, I'm not going to give away, but like, so I've been in practice 10 years. I mean, I wouldn't think I'm good enough to create a course. Let's just say, well, like in 10 years, I'm like, all right, let's go.
I made one. What are you talking about?
The quick start, I'm like, this is gold. Like it is simple, but like, I immediately, our next team training, I was like, okay, everybody look at this, read through this. I put my like admin team and I'm like, I want you to exercise through this. Me and my doctor were like, and it was just like, it's so simple. And it wasn't a script. And so like, and that was the thing that like, maybe I would have heard if I was like, oh, what do you mean it's not a script? Oh, I have to do work. But like, you just break it down. So it's like, oh, it's work, but it's like, oh, I can do this. So yeah, 10 years in practice and that quick start guide alone was a huge thing for our clinic. And my admin loved it. They were like, oh, how come we didn't think of this ourselves? Like,
no, and that's the thing. Like I even told, some of even the people who went through the first round of the course is it's not necessarily just for docs. It's literally for a team. And so CAs can take this because who better communicates chiropractic and who's having to communicate chiropractic on the regular is your team more than you.
That is such a
They have more interactions with your people and over the phone and your social media and the interactions with that. Like whoever has the most touch points with people is the people you need to invest in communicating chiropractic efficiently and effectively through their own lens.
Mm-hmm. And if you're a doc, you might be able to communicate in your way, but what are you going to do? Give a script to that's what we do, right? We as doctors, we give a script. When a new patient calls and they ask this, I want you to respond this way. And then like, you've probably heard your CA going over it and like, you're like, oh gosh, yeah. I can't believe you answered that question that way, but it's not their fault because we didn't teach them. And it's kind of the same with school of like, we're not taught to find our inspiration from the inside and how to simplify it and spit it out. We're just taught like, say this when a patient.
Well, let's talk about that because that's again, when we talk about where my passion comes from in this is, it is so subluxated for us to speak to people about their health coming from the inside out when we are not drawing out our own voice about what we do from the inside out. We're having people tell us from the outside in what we're supposed to say about people about from the inside out. That is the biggest contradiction.
My mind is just like, oh my God, that I've never thought of that, but yeah.
Yeah. I mean, like, that's where I'm like, where's the disconnect, guys? How are we not seeing this? Because you're telling me that you're about people telling people about their health from the inside out, but we're not honoring our own inside. We're not honoring our own voice. Like God did not give me Lauren Brunswick's voice. Like I've been given Denise's voice. It's very unique. My journey of chiropractic and my journey to chiropractic, my journey of my health, my life, my season of life is so unique. And just like each and every single individual, and you learning something that is just going to vomit on people is not only disrespecting the people that you are serving, but it's disrespecting yourself to the core and says that my experience is not valid and therefore is not worthy for me to even speak from that place because I don't trust what's going to come out of my mouth.
Mm-hmm. I don't trust and then you're exhausted. You are thrown into practice. You're regurgitating other people's words. And you're wondering why you're just tired because you feel like you've been on all day. And so then you feel like, oh, I just need to go off. And then you're just, that person at the airport who hears someone talking about chiropractic and you're like, don't tell them I'm a chiropractor. I don't want to talk about chiropractic.
Mm-hmm. And you're beat down because it's tiring because it's coming from you. It's not coming through you. Mm-hmm. So what if we did the work to do what is in you? Like, cause like, I know you walked through the conversation lab and you looked through some of the modules, but why do we spend so much time on you in the very beginning? Because people are like, oh, let's get to module.
Just tell me what I need to know. Just tell me.
Module 6. Let's go to branding and let's go to like, how the communication of like all the sexy things.
Yep.
It's like, but the thing is if you don't do module 1 and 2, which is all about foundations and then getting to know yourself and who you're trying to speak to. And if you don't do those things first and have ownership in what you have to contribute, your own language, which I have a PDF called Language Hacks. But if you're not like hammering this stuff out, then you doing 6, which module 6, like all the, tools to take action or attracting your people. But like, if you're doing all of that, it is exhausting because you're having to change. And this is the other thing I will say, this is the subluxated messaging that happens in our profession, where if I look at your Instagram or if I look at your social or if you look at anything and I'm scrolling through, I'll see one post and then 7 down, I'll see something completely different and it doesn't sound like the same voice. And then I'm going to something else and your website's different than who are you? And the reason why we don't know who you are or what you bring to the table is because you haven't done the work yourself. And you're waiting for someone else to give you the next PDF that's going to make you the next, new patient goal.
Yep. But then you're looking at mentors that you're like, well, that website looks really great. Copy paste,
which has happened way too many times.
Yep. And then you follow other, clinics that you aspire and you're like, oh, I really loved the way they said that thing about colic. We'll insert our picture there. And so it's just like, and it's, I feel bad because people, again, it goes back to what you just said. They don't trust that what they have to say matters.
Yep.
And so they just look to others and be like, oh, I'll just take what they said. Yep. And then, it's confusing. And there's just something not subconsciously off to the patient when they're just like, there's something incongruent.
Yeah. So that's where everything came from, was the incongruency. One of our whole foundation of our profession is inside out and our communication isn't. 2, it's because we're having way too much plagiarism and copy this, that, and the other. And I'll just post this because it looks sexy on somebody else's thing, versus let's do my work. Let's find out our uniqueness. Like every office is so unique, even if you're serving the same population, even if you're the same kind of like people, like even if we're all very similar, we all have unique voices. And so it's easy, the easy button to do all that stuff, but it is the hard easy, which we've heard before, even with our friend David Jackson, like hard easy is to do the work. And then obviously everything's coming from the inside out. Mm-hmm. So again, if you honor this first, everything can pour out and it makes it so much simpler. If I could say that, but we don't overcomplicate. That's another, it's either inauthentic, overcomplicated, confusing, or it's completely disconnected, so those are kind of usually the top 4 things with communication that usually are the issue.
Wait, repeat that. Cause you just dropped a okay. So the major things with communication that people struggle with are,
it being inauthentic, overcomplicated, confusing. And what is the last one? Oh, disconnected. Okay.
So when you were talking about module 1 and 2, because one of the questions I had was around the idea of the balance between scripts and authenticity. I get as, I've been doing this a while, so I can hear someone else's script and go ooh, I'm going to make that work for me. But a new graduate, someone who's okay, but I don't have the wisdom. is module 1 and 2, like obviously everyone needs module, but like, is that going to be super, super helpful for like the person who really thinks they need the scripts? Cause they're like, I'm just brand new.
Heck yeah. Like, I mean, I got students that are early in school that are taking this. Like I had a doc that's 20 years in, and I got students that are a year into chiropractic school. I mean, I was like, the fact that y'all are in here, like, I can't wait to see how they are flourishing just right after graduation.
I was going to say that
communicate better than people who've been doing it for 15, 30 plus years.
Yep, absolutely. And so like just being able to set everything up through the lens of like your website and your social media and your branding and all of that. I love it. Okay. In the course, you talk about like how to manage the gap, and we'll leave that as like a little secret, but like when you reference the gap, you're not talking about the clothing store. What's the gap that you mean?
Yeah, the gap is between where you are and where they are. Like by they, I mean like whoever you're speaking to, if the person's across the table from you, or maybe at the grocery store, they're asking a question about you're a chiropractor, like you're navigating, I call it navigating the gap, because you're seeing what is the difference between where I'm at in my ownership and then what's your your perception of chiropractic, or where are you, like, where are you at basically? And you're just seeing like again, chiropractors sometimes will put everything absolutely on their shoulders and say, it is my responsibility to make them believers of chiropractic and
right now.
And you're like, where did you ever get that? Like, and that no wonder people are like, blah, 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 blah. There's
like, a lot of pressure on it. There's a lot of pressure on this right now.
Right. And so, I mean, it's just an assessment of like, in a snapshot, it's like, where is their understanding? If it's Jim Bob low back pain, it's different, then it's different than a mom that's talking about her colicky baby, and you got to know like, hey, what would be the next step for them? So I look at it like the alphabet. Like if my ownership is at X, Y, and Z, and they are at A, it is not my job to bring them to M. Let's get them to just one step. Like what's B? Like, have you ever thought that maybe your system may be, not communicating as well as it should? That's kind of what we do. That's what we do in chiropractic is increase the communication. So, like it just is about like, you may want to get checked, but you got to find like before the question about have you ever been checked is what's the thing that connects them to the next thing?
It is like prior to hearing that, you'd go like, I'm somebody who just keps talking. I don't know if you know. Everyone listening.
No.
Well, like surprised.
Glad you can keep talking.
So like, I would be the type of person who would watch you say that. And I'd be like, oh my gosh, look at the like restraint, like that worked. But then unless somebody like taught me to do that, I would just be like, And as soon as they start shaking their head, I'd be like, all right, you've got them. You got them on the hook. Now educate them and fill them and do all this stuff. But then like they get overwhelmed. And
all you want to do is create enough curiosity for them to take the next step.
Because people don't want you to tell them to take the step.
And it doesn't empower them.
No. So is that also a part of like the training of like teaching the chiropractor how to not like drag a horse to water?
Yes. And it's because I teach a really, it's more of a thing that I created called Link, but you have to anchor back to something that they know already in life, whether it is how a car works or whether what they know about a CEO that the communication between CEO and department heads, like what is the thing that's going to help them understand how their body works then? You know what I mean? Like what's going to help a person who's a high powered CEO is like, we want to make sure the CEO of the brain is communicating with every department head of like, you're the business. So how do we make the business better and stronger? We got to increase the communication of the entire like business or corporation or whatever. And they're like, got it. got it. Like you have to care enough to connect it to them. You have to loop it back to things that they already know. Then it's an open window into going into sharing information. But if you share information before you make it about them, they don't hear anything.
Yep. So when I can understand when you're having a one-on-one, this is one of those questions that's like, wait for it. I'll make sure I clarify. It's happening in my head really fast. Okay. So one-on-one, I can see like where like, all right, talking directly to them, connecting the dots for them. Where I would guess a lot of chiropractors really screw up is in their like marketing and advertising, where it's not a one-on-one conversation in their mind. It's like, I want everyone in my town to see this ad or like watch this video and realize that I'm their chiropractor. Like that's a problem when we're trying to talk to everyone, right?
Yeah. And that is the problem. It's when you do talk to everyone, you are literally not going to talk to anyone. But if you do talk to the one, which is the person that you define as your ideal practice member, when you talk to the one, you end up talking to everyone.
Mm-hmm. I just feel like so many new docs are so worried that they're like going to alienate. Like, well, if I'm just saying that, like, I'm talking to moms, like, but what if a dad saw it?
Then talk to the dad. The dad.
But if they want the mom, they get.
The thing is, the dad sees it and says, well, if it's doing that for them, then what about me? Like, again, where's the he's curious.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? So and that's why you need to make sure that some of your marketing materials aren't necessarily like, even though my stuff says a lot about prenatal and pediatric, which is, a lot of that's the niche in which I serve, because that's a specialization like you. However, I have people from all walks of life in different age ranges, I have athletic performance. I've got, to like basically an older population that's heavily involved in, just trying to optimize their health, so, and I see dudes, it doesn't really matter. You just have to tailor it to them specifically, even though they see my marketing being more like more tailored towards my ideal. Doesn't mean that they don't feel alienated at all. They love it. They love it because it's not like I'm talking to them about pregnancy when they're coming in. I'm talking to them about them, and they just know I'm here for them.
Right. Yeah. One of the things I love about the lack of scripts and like the finding is that like, within our profession, and we'll try not to go on this too much of a soapbox, but if we just choose to for a little bit, we can, is that we have such a division between like what kind of chiropractor you are. And I feel like a lot of training on communication might depend, like, it might just be really subluxation heavy. And like somebody might be like, well, I don't use that word. Like for the first 5 years of my practice, if I would have like been trained on like, this is how you communicate the subluxation, I would have been like, I'm going to like, but so I really love how, again, it's not necessarily something for a new doc or an old doc. It's not necessarily something for a mixer or a straight or whatever. It's just allowing you to show up authentic.
Whatever you're wanting to show up. Like, it's just more of like, okay, well, what do you want to create and how this is a good way to utilize. I give you tools to basically create what you're wanting to create, but there's no judgment as to what you are trying to create, so no matter if you're insurance or cat.
Yeah. No judgment. What do you mean? How do we go forward with no judgment on each other?
I think that's where we need to start going as a profession. Frankly, and the more we just have to start, like, again, and that's what I tell people, even in the conversation lab, it's like, you can revisit this at any point in time because we evolve as people. Like, if you want to evolve into a different kind of practice and style, then you just reconfigure this. Like, you're not having, like, you've already done the work. Now it's just tweaking, or, if you're going to rebrand, just revisit this. Like, you're constantly going to evolve.
Yeah.
Your communication evolves. The people, maybe your ideal practice member evolves. Like, it's not set in stone from the beginning, but you're honoring your own process as an individual, saying, I'm going to change, like That's why scripts don't work. They work for a certain amount of time until someone can build confidence, maybe, or finding their voice, or it's just like a handicap and a crutch, and it keeps you from doing the work. And if they're not there, it falls apart. It's just better to have something that's organically coming through you, and you've just done the work to do it. But no matter if you're subluxation, like even, it's not even male and female. Like I have both in the conversation lab, and it's super eye open, I love seeing like what our brothers are creating, what our sisters are creating in chiropractic. And the more like ownership we have in our communication, I think as a profession, the more we're actually going to, meet people where they're at, and they are going to get it.
They will respond to that. Yes.
Yeah. And they get to see what it happens, like what's the spillover effect in their life and their health and their expression of life, like their vitality, what they're able to accomplish, what they're able to field, all the things. And that's my biggest thing, is that when people say, that's where communication was so like heavy in the beginning, was like, tell the story, tell the story, tell the story. And I'm like, what if we just connected the story to them? What if telling the story is connecting the story to them? Because only through their own experience can they speak with ownership about what chiropractic does. Like, I can't tell them what chiropractic is. They have to experience what chiropractic is and then speak that. And that's what ends up growing a practice and bringing in droves of people, is more people sharing their experiences, because the stories is what creates a practice. Like the stories is what brings in referrals. The stories is what does everything.
Yeah. So like when I'm hearing you describe that, so like I had thought, a lot about like, oh yeah, the conversation lab will be able to help with like my new patient phone call and my day 1 and my day 2. And if I meet some guy in an elevator and he's like, oh, you're a chiropractor, what do you do? But when I'm hearing like seriously build your practice, what kept coming up as you were talking was like table talk, and like how you're just, because you're saying like, if somebody comes in at A and we want to get them to Z, okay, congratulations, you got them to B, C, or D by the ROF, like day 2 ROF. Mm-hmm. But if you want them to be a lifelong practice member that like is like singing your praises and sending in referrals, which is like the gold nugget, you got to get them closer to Z. And they're little seeds. And I feel like so many people struggle with table talk, probably because like we teach them day 1, day 2 is a script. And then we're like, all right, so go do table talk. And they're like, but I don't know what to do. Do you feel like the course helps with that? Because that is such a spot for me.
Absolutely. Mainly because, we just walked through a year that, what I've told people is like, communication either is your biggest asset or it's your biggest liability. And when in this year, especially, you get to see how well you've literally connected the story to them and how much they've applied it in their lives. Because your retention is hinged upon your communication. Your like the influx of people is hinged upon your communication. Like you can show me your statistics, which I do go through stats and sustainability, because sustainability is king in all of this. It's not just drumming up people and then having your back door just wide open. Yeah. Like we want to, and it's not also a jailhouse. It's more of like a nurture, like how are you going to continuously nurture? And that's why I look at interactions with people as touch points, and, communication touch points along the way. And it's different for everyone. And so we go through, what does that look like in your practice? And what are you wanting to convey to people in certain places? And how can you celebrate their journeys along the way? And that nurturing process increases your retention, which then increases your sustainability, which then increases your bottom line. Like your profitability is totally hinged upon your communication, whether that's in the beginning, the middle, whatever you want to perceive as the end, like how you even have people, how you even escort people out of your practice says a lot about whether they'll return to your practice. Like there's so much to the whole situation. And I will say, like, while this is so huge and big and broad, like communicate or communication can be. I tried to like make this as simple and streamlined as possible. So that's where I was like, how can we just break down the bare bones of this situation and then, put like foundations, getting clear, and then creating your own, and then attracting your people. And then, stats are just more like tools to keep it going. And that's something that you and a team can completely revisit over and over and over again. So
when you were talking, about like, first of all, I'd never thought about the jailhouse. You always hear about the open door, but then like when you said a jailhouse, I'm like, oh gosh, I think sometimes we are like, you're never going to leave us. But as you're talking, and it's just like communication can be this big thing. And I'm like, oh my gosh, all these touch points. And I started to almost get stressed for a second about like like you said it's communication is either your biggest asset or your liability. And I'm like, oh crap. But then I reminded that like, this isn't a script course. This isn't like, okay, now remember on visit 9, you're going to do this, this, and this. So as I almost had to like talk myself down as I was like, oh my gosh, are you doing a good enough job at communication? I was like, no, wait, remember that like through you, not like through the process is like, it will come authentically when you do the work of learning how to find that it becomes natural. Right.
And there's, the structured part of me, I love me some structure. Let's not get it twisted. That's why this whole thing is created. I want to take something big and I want to break it down into little pieces and make it, and which was quite the feat.
Yeah. I can't even imagine.
It was quite the feat. Many weekends locked in a hotel room by myself without my children. But it was like, what is necessary to get to the next step? Like what is necessary to get to next, and then how can we make it as simple as possible? And so even in interactions, whether it's table talk, day 2, day 1, marketing, what have you, it's like you get frameworks. And that's why I love the word framework, is because you can create it. And you're like, I want to, like in my day 1, I think it's important for me to follow the flow of this to that, connect this to that, and then ask the questions of this. And then I'll move to this. And that's different for every single person, for every single practitioner. Like what you do in your framework may be different than what it may be similar, but it may be different.
Yeah.
It'll have its differences. And then same goes with, maybe your second visit with people. Like I want to go from this place to this place. If we get out on a tangent, I anchor back to this. Like there's certain like guardrails that you can put in place for yourself. And it's always nice to have someone alongside you. And that's where I put like, I'm the guide. I'm not the person and your teacher. I'm like literally walking beside you going, let's just create this framework. Maybe you can put this in place. Let's put some guardrails here. And then that way, like, this is where I go. This is where I don't go. This is where I want to go. This is the next place I'd like to go, and that depends, when that's in each conversation. So while I would love to say day 1, I say this, day 2, I say this. A day 22, I make sure I touch on this, it's very black and white or whatever, that doesn't honor, it does not honor them, because you've already decided the conversation you're having with them before you even felt the pulse on them and whatever they're coming through your door with. We'll have people that just miscarried. We'll have people who just lost somebody, or we have people who just lost their job, you do not know where you're coming in, and you are missing it if you do not connect something to what they're experiencing, or like, how can we help nurture your system through such a dramatic change? Like, how can we help, help your system navigate all of this? It's always important to anchor to what they are currently doing, knowing what their goals are in the back of your mind.
Mm-hmm. I mean, you have given so much in this, like, I can't even imagine. Like, I'm just so excited for people who, get, like, you just gave this away for free. Okay. So everybody listening, no matter what, you got a bunch to like think about. You're welcome. Or thank you, Denisa. Everyone say you're welcome. For those that are listening, during a certain amount of time though, because this will drop on April 11th. Tell them about the Conversation Lab, the opportunity that they have when it ends, type of thing.
Sure. So this is our second opening for our second round of people to join in. I don't leave this open just for anyone to purchase all year round. We do this together. So we had our first group, about 33 people on the first go, and it was amazing. So our second round is opening April 11th that this is dropping. And then the doors will shut on April 23rd. So it's really like a 2-week window. And then we shut the doors and we start getting to work.
April 23rd at like 11:59 p.m. So like midnight. Almost 1 minute before April 24th. Okay, just clarifying.
Midnight 23rd. Thank you, Lauren. That's very important to note. Yes, midnight. We give you until if you're in the wee hours of the night rocking a child, you can purchase on your phone. But yes, midnight. So we'll have 2 weeks open and then the doors will shut. And then whoever is in, we will be in this kind of like this grouping for about 8 weeks. We do, there's 6 modules, like 20 lessons, tons of PDFs, guides, videos, slide decks, cheat sheets, you name it. It's all in there. But each week we unlock another module. So it's a dripped thing. Like it's not like full access because we need to go through these sequentially, as for the reasons why we already talked about that earlier on.
I'm going to hold you accountable. You don't.
I really, the driver in me really wanted to be a person that made the thing that you have full access to it because that's how I operate.
Yep.
But I know exactly where I go.
Yep. Me too. I'm like, I know I'd be like, skip that one. You'd be like,
yeah. And I'm like, no, we can't skip that. Or you're going to ask me questions and I'm going to go, where did you do that work in module 1 and 2? All right. So it's a drip ed or dripped content, trip modules. And then every Friday we connect with I created a very private Facebook group for the people who are specifically in that in this like second launch or second group of TCL members, and we do the work together. So, and that's what we did with our first group. And so every Friday we meet and we go over any like nuances, things that you're tackling with the homework with module 1. We'll talk a little bit about what's coming up in module 2, but we really kind of get into the nitty gritty and we do it live. Like you'll see me in ball cap, you'll see me all the things like You'll see me in video modules and my hair grows and does all these things and all kinds of funny, whatever recordings. But then we do the real live, like that's where my team or what these groups have said is that those are what really was like the most helpful. It's like
coaching. So it's like you get a course and coaching.
Right.
Yeah. For like that's incredible.
Yeah. So we'll have some implementation weeks because sometimes it can get a little overwhelming working through some of this stuff. We'll have 1 and 2 and then an implementation week, 3 and 4, an implementation week, and then 5 and 6. And then we have a big party. So that's kind of like what we do. And that's kind of what the pulse was. The first group kind of gave me feedback and was like, I need an implementation week. And we're like, okay, we got it. It's all good. But we'll still like circle up and go through things. So you do get a private membership only Facebook group as we go along. And so you're not necessarily purchasing a course and being left to your own devices. You can totally do that, but you should definitely take advantage of being part of it and listening to other people's questions and going, I never thought about that before.
Yep, absolutely. And then you have a special thing for players. Mm-hmm.
I do. So this is actually will be $797 total for the course. I already told you kind of what you get with it. I'm giving $100 off for all sheslays, and all you have to do is go. And I don't know if Lauren will put the link on your show notes.
I will.
Okay, cool. It'll be drdenisaweber.com/TCL for the Conversation Lab. And on there, when you click to purchase the course, on the promo code, just put in all caps, sheslays. So that will give you $100 off, and you'll get it actually for what we originally sold it for in the beginning. And I told all of them that was the lowest
this for this price.
I told them it was the lowest to ever sell it. So I'm giving you guys only the first round pricing, which is
you only get this discount, people, because I've had her on 3 times. She's a special guest.
So you're going to get it for $697. There'll be an option too as well. You can, have it either prepay full, or you can have a 3-month or 3 individual payments. So that'll spread out as well. So just know that we'll have 2 options there, and then you'll have the promo code as well.
Awesome. And if people are listening after, I'm assuming you have a wait list somewhere. How would someone join the wait list if they missed the boat? And I'm going to answer this question probably right away. No, if you were listening on the 24th. No, if you were listening on the 28th. I'm assuming she's going, sorry. I got so many people who messaged me like days after I closed the Reels course, and they're like, I'm like, I'm so sorry. I promised people when I say done, I'm not playing a game. So I'm assuming you're in the same boat. Like,
yeah.
Done, so.
We don't want to catch people up to modules. Like, we got to honor everyone that pulled the trigger first goes. This is like, people are committed. They're ready to go. We want to go all in. Yep. And then we'll open the doors again next quarter, probably in like June-ish, July. So that'll be the next time. My plan is that each quarter we have a different group of people. So just know, like, I would jump on this just because it is going to be a lower price point than it'll be offered, it was cheaper before. Now we have more, we've built more, we've done more, we need to learn more from it. So this will be a good way in. But yes, after the 24th, know that you can join the wait list by going to my website at drdenisaweber.com. And then on the link, it says on the top, it says the course, and it'll shoot you straight to joining the waitlist, and you'll get onto my email list. So you'll never miss an opportunity to know more about like when the next one's coming up and all the things. So yeah.
Perfect. All right. Well, I'm so excited. Thank you so much for creating this. Like I said, every time I'm like digging through it, I'm just like, damn, she is good at this. Like, real good. God has blessed you, dear. So
we all have different lanes.
Yeah. And we just need to learn from those who do better than us. So
well, thanks for having me on. And
yeah, I'll have you on again sometime in the next 100 episodes. How about that?
Okay.
That sounds good. Before episode 200, we'll have your 4th reprise.
$199.
Right.
$199.
All right, She Slayers, I hope you enjoyed this conversation with Dr. Denisa Weber as much as I did, because ultimately that's all that really matters. We all know that the podcast is more about me than you. We joke all the time. Just kidding. I love you. But if I wasn't having fun, I would stop doing it. So next week is episode 100. We have 2 very special guests coming on. Another reprise. Drop your guesses who they are. But until next week, She Slayers. Bye.
Peace.